Hey friends, this is Emily over at Quilt 101. I am very excited because today I'm going to show you how to make this new, it's kind of a revised version of one of our old patterns, a Twisted 9, but this is called the Twisted 9 Half Squared. And you'll see why in the tutorial, because all of these fun blocks are made using half square triangles. So this quilt finishes at 63 by 75.5 inches, so it's a nice size lap quilt, and it's made using really big blocks and it comes together really quickly. So stay tuned and follow along as we teach you how to make this Twisted 9 half squared quilt. And yes, it is available in pre-cut quilt kits this Friday. So here's everything that comes in the kit. So you will get a paper pattern. This has all of the instructions in it as well. And then in the kit, you are going to receive pre-cut binding. And then we have the background fabrics. So we have, look at this. I don't know if you can see it on here, but it's a metallic silver. And then this is the other background color. And then with this kit, it comes with either a gold metallic accent color or a really beautiful like greenish blue accent. And then you are going to get all of the pre-cut printed squares, and this is the fabric from Ruby Star Society called Flurry, and it's so pretty. It has lots of metallics in it. It's a fun wintry but like still has a little bit of Christmas print to it, but we love it because you can keep it up all winter long. So that is everything that comes in your kit. And let's go ahead and get started on making it. So to make a block, you are going to grab 4 printed fabrics. You're going to grab 1 of the accent square and then 2 of each of the background. And for now, we first need to make the half square triangles. So we are going to move these off to the side and we are just going to focus on these 2 background prints. I am just going to grab these white squares right here and we're going to work on turn them to the back so we have the wrong side. So the right side's like the pretty side, wrong side is the back. So we are going to take a ruler right here, and then I'm just using, you can use a pencil. This is a heat erasable pen. It's called Friction. We have these on our site. I love them. But you just want to grab some sort of marking tool to draw these lines. So we're just going to take the ruler and just go from corner to corner and draw a diagonal line. This pen is starting to run out, but there's enough ink that it'll work. So I'm just going to go from corner to corner on these 2 blocks. All right, I have those drawn, and so now we are going to take the gray background and right sides together. We're going to stack a white on top of the gray, and this is going to be pretty sides facing each other, so right sides facing each other, and then we have the white square with the back of the white square with the line drawn on top. So we're just going to line these up, and now we're going to go over to the sewing machine. Now I do recommend whenever you stack the white and gray squares on top of each other, just to make sure that they stay nice and squared up, I'm just going to take some pins and just pin it along the corners just to help the fabrics not move. And it's just going to, little things like this, it takes some extra time, but in the end, it just makes your life easier. So we have this line drawn right here, and we are going to sew a scant 1/4 inch on both sides of that line. So I have my needle moved over to the side. It is smaller than a 1/4 inch because that just gives us a little bit more room to work whenever we go to square everything up. And then I am just going to use the line that we made as a guide, and I'm just going to sew a scant 1/4 inch on both sides. Now a fun little trick whenever you get to the end is I just lift the sewing foot up and I pivot, and then I just sew, and then I just continue sewing on the other side. So we're just going to do the same thing, just sew a scant 1/4 inch going along the other side of the diagonal line that we drew. So now, either using a ruler and rotary cutter or just some fabric shears, we are going to cut on the line that we drew. So I'll show you up close. You can see the stitching on either side of that line. And so now we're going to cut it, and I'll show you why. Because now this turns into 2 half square triangles. How fun is that? So we're just going to trim up this other one, and then we're just going to iron these to the gray side. To iron these half square triangles open, we're just going to first set the seam by just gently rubbing the hot iron on top of the seam. And now we're going to lift up the gray. We're going to lift it up, and we're just going to iron over it. Iron to the dark side. And we're just going to do that with all of these pieces. Just set and then press the seam over to the gray. This next step is crucial, so please do not skip out on trimming up your blocks because it is so necessary. So I just have a square up ruler. You can really use any ruler that you have, but I have this 9.5 and it works perfect for this. So there's really not much extra room on the sides of these squares. So you have to be a little careful with this because you want to make sure that you are able to square it up to 9 inches. And so whenever I go to square it up, I have this line right here on the ruler, and I'm going to line it up with the line on the block just to make sure. There we go. Now I am just going to make sure, because we're going to square this block up to 9 inches. And so I want to make sure that there's a little bit overhang on this 9-inch mark right here. So that way, after I trim this one side, there's still a little I can trim off on the other. Okay, so I'm just going to trim that off. You see there's not much. Now I'm going to rotate this, and now I'm going to line it exactly up with those 9 inches. Got a camera in my way, so it makes things a little difficult for me to move. Okay. All right, that looks good. All right, so now we'll just trim up that corner, and now we have a perfectly squared up 9-inch block. So we're going to do that with the rest of the half square triangles. I've got all of my half square triangles squared up, and so now we're going to assemble the big block. So we're going to grab the rest of those prints that we set aside along as the accent color, and I will show you how to lay this out because it matters. It's really important that you lay it out like this. So we are just going to get our prints. So it's going to be like this is where the 9 comes in, the twisted 9. So we're going to put the accent in the middle, and then we're going to put the prints on the corners. You don't have to worry too much about these prints coordinating well together, or that make sure they're all different. They can be totally random printed fabrics on the outside because we're going to eventually cut them until they'll be their own individual block. But what is the most important is to make sure these half square triangles are in the right position. So we just want to make sure I'm following the pattern that we have. And the most important thing when laying this out is you want to make sure that you don't have 2 of the seams next to each other. So you don't want this where you have like a diagonal going all the way across. You want to make sure that the diagonal is always broken up with the solid. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so let me back this out. This is a huge block. So you can see we have the 9 squares all lined up, and so now we're just gonna sew the rows together. So I'm just gonna stack this on top of each other. And I'm just gonna sew those 3 rows together. To help keep everything organized, I'm taking, these are the Marilee's numbered pins, and I am just going to just pin on the top left corner their number. That way it helps me a lot to stay organized. All right, now we can go chain piece. I have my squares off to the side, so I'm just gonna grab the first block of the first row, and I am going to take the second one, and I'm just gonna turn these right sides together. So this is the first and second square of that first row. And now I'm gonna move my machine so it's 1/4 inch. And we're going to just sew all the way down. And a chain piece, which just helps save a lot of time, we're not gonna cut the thread once we get to the bottom of that square. We're gonna just go ahead and grab, so I have the first square of row 2. Now I'm gonna grab the next one, put these right sides together, and same thing, we're just gonna sew, beat it right in there and just sew all the way down. So now that we've reached the bottom of the last row, this is where we are going to cut the thread. And then I'm just gonna pull it all the way back up to the first square. We're gonna open this, and now we're gonna grab that last row from row 1, and we are going to flip them right sides together and continue sewing. Chain piecing is the best thing ever. So we're just gonna do that, and we'll check back in. We're back at the ironing station, and now we're going to iron these rows and so that the seams will nestle each other. And basically what that means is, depending on how you iron the seams, some will go this way, the others will go that way, and so they'll interlock, and so that way it just helps the seams, there we go, help the seams just lie nice and flat. And my rule of thumb is I take the rows that all have an odd number, I start ironing, ow, I poked myself. I start ironing from that side. So this is row 1, so I'm going to start with the first square, and I'm going to lift it up. We're just going to press these seams to the left. And this is so nice because there's only 3 blocks. You use the same method with larger quilts, and sometimes you can have 30 of them or more, depending on how small the blocks are. Okay, so we have row 1 is ironed, and you can see when I flip it over, all of the seams are going this way. Just gonna press that. All right, and now we're gonna move on to row 2, and I do the opposite with row 2. So because it's an even number, I start ironing on the opposite side. So here's the pin right here on the left. So now I'm gonna start at the end without a pin and iron over. Learning this was just like one of those life-changing moments for me. It just, because beforehand I just would always iron all my pieces, all my seams open, and it takes forever, and I just feel like it, I don't know, it sometimes doesn't feel like it's a really strong, doesn't hold it. The seams kind of come out. But so anyway, so I'll kind of show you. So whenever you go to sew rows 1 and 2 together, you'll see right here that this top seam is going that way, the bottom seam is going that way. So whenever you sew them together, you literally just notch them in and you can feel it. You can feel it click. It's really cool. So I'm just gonna finish ironing all of these rows, and I'm actually just going to sew them together. So I will see you back at the cutting table. This block is massive, so it's really hard to get it all into focus. But as you can see, I have all of the 9 squares sewn together. And so now this is the fun part. We are going to cut this block in 4 different squares. So you want to first measure one of the blocks. It should be 8.5 inches. And so you're basically, because the block is so big, I can't use the cutting. I can't use like the cutting mat to calculate all my cuts. So we're just going to take the ruler and we're going to put it at 4 1/4, and that should put us in the middle. And so now we're just going to cut. And then I've got to move this down. All right, cut this in half. Now I'll rotate it. Man, these are so big. I'm just gonna do this in two different things. So I'll just take this ruler and line it up again with 4 1/4. And then again with this. I do love these nice big blocks. It makes the project come together super quickly. Okay, so you can see right here, we have the 4 blocks, so we have the one big block, and now that we cut it, we have 4! Yay, the magic! So these are going to be the blocks. You'll want to make sure to square these up. Let me double check the pattern. They square up to 13 inches. So you'll want to make sure and go through and square up all these blocks to 13 inches before you start piecing them together. But these are your finished blocks right here. So you're just going to make 32 of these. So like that one big block we made, I believe you make 8 of those. And then once you cut them down, you'll get 32 of these 13-inch blocks. And then you will just arrange these to make your quilt top. So that's pretty much how you make this, what are we calling it? The Twisted 9 half squared. But it's really fun. I love how you get different, like depending on how you lay it out, you'll get like a different graphic effect. It's a lot of fun. But anyways, this is how you make the block. Hopefully this video showed you that you can do it. It's not bad at all. So there you have it. That is how you make the Twisted 9 half squared lap quilt. I'll just show you a few more close-ups of the quilt. I just love how we took the blocks and we just kind of arranged them however we liked, and it just adds a really fun look to the quilt. Let us know if you guys have any questions. We hope that this tutorial helped to answer your questions and that you feel more confident taking it on. You can purchase this kit over at quilt101.com on this Friday, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.